Tonight, a look at the science that's been lost on long COVID, trouble getting weight loss drugs covered by insurance. Here's what to know, 8 things to know about the gut microbiome and keeping yours healthy. Stat Plus. Another big deal, another sign biotech M&A is back. Stat Plus. Despite transplant referrals, most kidney patients don't make the wait list. Confirmed Ebola cases in Congo outbreak top 1,000 with 254 deaths. Authorities say, a blood test that screens for multiple types of cancer. It may be available soon. Puberty blocker trial will help reduce harm, says CAS report author. Opinion. Stat Plus. Enough already. The problem with clinical trial data collection. Stat Plus. Closely watched Pfizer lung cancer drug falls short in clinical trial despite state bans. Abortions have almost doubled. The reason. Pills via telehealth. The public health team watching the World Cup. Health equity researchers fear unseen level of scrutiny under White House proposal. What does hot weather do to the body? What are UV levels and how can you protect yourself? Stat Plus. Definium LSD therapy helped patients with major depression in late-stage trial. Serena Williams has returned to tennis. How returning to a sport can benefit you. Trump administration targets disability integration mandate in DOJ memo. Stat Plus. FDA reverses course on Regenxbio's childhood gene therapy after rejection, and a bride's guide to managing panic. We start with a look at the science that's been lost on long COVID. A look at the science that's been lost on long COVID. A look at the science that's been lost on long COVID since President Trump took office. Hundreds of experts advising on science and research issues have been dismissed. One committee was on long COVID, an issue that doctors are desperate for help with. Scott DETROW, host. Every year, the government recruits some of the brightest experts and advocates in their fields to work in a largely volunteer program advising federal agencies on science and research. But the Trump administration has dismissed hundreds of these experts from their committees. NPR's Keisha Riddle looked closely at the science that has been lost on one urgent issue. KATIA Riddle byline. A turning point for Nesha McCrae was her 30th birthday. She had COVID, and that day, she realized she wasn't recovering nearly as fast as other people. NETIA-MCCRAY? On my birthday, it dawned on me when I woke up and couldn't breathe for the 5th week in a row, this is a signal this is going to be with me for a little bit longer. Riddle. That was 6 years ago. She's still suffering now from long COVID fatigue, heart palpitations, shortness of breath. She's one of 14 people, doctors, patients, other experts, and advocates, who trouble getting weight loss drugs covered by insurance. Here's what to know. Trouble getting weight loss drugs covered by insurance. Here's what to know. Trouble getting weight loss drugs covered by insurance. Here's what to know. Audio will be available later today. What to do if your insurance denies your obesity drug. 8 things to know about the gut microbiome and keeping yours healthy. 8 things to know about the gut microbiome and keeping yours healthy in the world of wellness and health content. Few areas of our anatomy attract more interest lately and specious claims than the gut microbiome. This vast ecosystem of bacteria and microorganisms within our intestines shapes our health in profound ways that go well beyond digesting food. Our immune system, mood, cognition, metabolism, and much more. Life Kit. Should I take a probiotic? And other gut questions, answered, but public awareness of the microbiome's central role in our well-being has also given rise to a market of advice givers and products playing up the idea that we need to constantly test, reset, or somehow optimize this network of bugs inside us. Gut researchers say, in many cases, what's being promoted has leapfrogged the evidence. Here's what some of the leading scientists in the field want you to know. 1. A healthy gut microbiome is still hard to define. It's a fundamental challenge for the field. In healthy people, the specific makeup of the gut microbiome can vary considerably based on geography, lifestyle, diet, genetics, and other factors. Even though the field has made major strides, there's another big deal, another sign biotech M&A is back. Want to stay on top of the science and politics driving biotech today? Sign up to get our biotech newsletter in your inbox. Good morning. Pharma companies are on a biotech buying spree. An LSD pill just delivered unusually strong late-stage depression data, and the FDA reverses course of Regenxbio's treatment. Also, today, thousands of industry players and me are gathering in San Diego for bio to talk deals, science, and whatever comes next. Check out the last item for a jaunt down memory lane about the conference. This article is exclusive to Stat Plus subscribers. Unlock this article, plus in-depth analysis, newsletters, premium events, and news alerts. Already have an account? Log in. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another working week. We hope the weekend respite, longer than usual thanks to a holiday on this side of the pond, was relaxing and invigorating. Now, though, that too familiar routine of meetings, deadlines, and the like has returned with a vengeance. You knew this would happen, yes? To cope, we are relying, as always, on a cup of stimulation. Our choice today is English breakfast. Feel free to join us. Remember, no prescription is required. Meanwhile, here. Stat Plus, despite transplant referrals, most kidney patients don't make the wait list. Teresa is the lead morning rounds writer, and her stories focus on gender-affirming care, reproductive health, and mental health. You can reach Teresa on Signal at their SAGF 97. Helen Branswell covers issues broadly related to infectious diseases, including outbreaks, preparedness, research, and vaccine development. Follow her on Mastodon and Blue Sky. You can reach Helen on Signal at H. Branswell 01. Liz covers cardiovascular and metabolic disease, asking why we're not doing better or even losing ground against the world's leading killer. Send tips on Signal at Liz C. 22. Get your daily dose of health and medicine every weekday with Stat's free newsletter morning rounds. Sign up here. Good morning. Here's a poem for the first Monday of official summer. As Alex Dimitrov writes, unfortunately for me and you, we have the rest of it to get to. Let's get to it. Advertisement: a looming threat to health disparities. Research in NIH grant proposal since the Trump administration announced its plan to overhaul the federal grant-making process to give more power to political appointees. Researchers have expressed alarm at the potential impact such a change could have on American science. Confirmed Ebola cases in Congo outbreak top 1,000 with 254 deaths, authorities say. BUNIA, Congo, confirmed cases in the Ebola outbreak in eastern Congo have reached 1,003, including 254 deaths, officials said, as tracing those who had been in contact with patients remains a major challenge. A total of 100 people have recovered in the outbreak concentrated in the Ituri province since it was declared on May 15, Congo's Ministry of Health said Sunday. At least 365 patients are in hospitals or in isolation, it said. The Ebola outbreak caused by the rare Bundibugyo virus, which has no vaccines or treatment, was the worst ever in its first month. Officials admit there could be far more cases they still don't know about, and that the peak of the outbreak is still ahead. Contact tracing remains a key issue for local authorities, who have only achieved a 55% coverage rate, the ministry said. If you want to control an outbreak, especially Ebola outbreak, you must know the index case. We don't have confidence on when this outbreak started, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director General Dr. Jean Casia told the Associated Press last week. Officials also are yet to identify the patient zero and trace more than 35,000 people who have come in contact with. A blood test that screens for multiple types of cancer. It may be available soon. A blood test that screens for multiple types of cancer. It may be available soon. A blood test that screens for multiple types of cancer. It could be a reality soon. Blood tests on the horizon and under federal regulatory view may be about to transform cancer care and survival. The Food and Drug Administration has been evaluating a blood test called Galleri, pronounced like Gallery, as a breakthrough device that can detect many different types of cancer in one test. FDA could approve it later this year, clearing the way for such testing to become broadly available. For the latest stories on the science of healthy living, subscribe to NPR's health newsletter. If that happens, experts say such tools have the power to revolutionize cancer screening as it exists today, making it far easier, more comprehensive, and more accessible to a greater number of people. Relatively few screening tests now currently. In the U.S., it's common to screen for 5 cancers: breast, colon, cervical, prostate, and lung, each requiring its own scan like a CT test or exam like a Pap smear. By comparison, the Galleri test can detect small amounts of DNA or other cancer markers for up to 50 cancers. Puberty blocker trial will help reduce harm, says Cass report author. Puberty blocker trial will help reduce harm, says Cass report author. A trial examining the risks or benefits of drugs that can delay puberty for gender-questioning children will help reduce harm, according to the author of a landmark review. Dr. Hilary Cass said she was absolutely convinced that more children will be harmed if we don't do the trial than if we do. Her comments follow pressure from campaigners and some politicians to have the research program scrapped after it was announced children as young as 11 could be recruited onto the trial. The Pathways clinical trial will be run by researchers at King's College, London, KCL. In addition to setting a minimum age, they have also increased the safeguards for participants. The puberty blockers research was recommended by Dr. Cass after her 2024 review of gender medicine for children pointed to weak evidence behind their use. The NHS has in the past prescribed puberty blockers for under-18s gender care, but in 2024, the government brought in a UK-wide indefinite ban on the drugs being prescribed privately or by the NHS for gender care for under-18s. Speaking to the BBC, Dr. Cass said she believes since then some of the hype opinion, Stat Plus, enough already, the problem with clinical trial data collection. Nearly 30% of the data collected in clinical trials do not directly inform key decisions, yet patients are still asked to provide it. Stat Plus, closely watched Pfizer lung cancer drug, falls short in clinical trial. Pfizer said Monday that an experimental drug it hoped could replace a widely used chemotherapy in one of the most common forms of lung cancer fell short in a clinical trial. Expectations had been high that the drug, sigvotatug vedotin, could replace docetaxel, a chemotherapy initially approved in 1996. Last year, Pfizer's CEO, Albert Bourla, said on an earnings call the drug could be a driver of growth later this decade. In a note to investors in May, Leerink analyst David Rissinger called the upcoming data readout a major oncology catalyst and said he had spoken to a doctor who was optimistic about its potential. Pfizer acquired sigvotatug vedotin when it bought the biotechnology firm Seagen for $43 billion in 2023. This article is exclusive to Stat Plus subscribers. Unlock this article, plus daily coverage and analysis of the pharma industry, by subscribing to Stat Plus. Already have an account? Log in. Despite state bans, abortions have almost doubled. The reason? Pills via telehealth. Despite state bans, abortions have almost doubled. The reason? Pills via telehealth. Dr. Angel Foster had a backup plan. It was the first weekend in May. A federal appeals court had just made it illegal to mail mifepristone, a pill that's part of the most widely used abortion method in the U.S. Foster, a specialist in reproductive health, leads the Massachusetts Medication Abortion Access Project, which ships abortion pills to some 3,500 patients a month nationwide, including in states with abortion bans. She told patients they had three options. They could get a refund. They could wait to see if the legal situation changed. Or she could ship them only misoprostol, a second drug already used in most medication abortions. Combined, mifepristone and misoprostol are considered the clinical gold standard for medication abortion. Misoprostol can be taken alone to induce an abortion, but some studies have suggested it's less effective, Foster warned patients. Plus, it can make the process longer and more painful, with more side effects, such as nausea and vomiting. Still, the vast majority of patients said the same thing, just send it. They didn't care, Foster said. Their response W. The public health team watching the World Cup. The public health team watching the World Cup as millions gather for the World Cup. A scrappy public health operation led by a team at Georgetown is tracking disease threats using surveys, wastewater, and online chatter to spot outbreaks early. PIENHUANG, host. Are you one of the millions of people who have gone to a fan zone or stadium or bar to watch World Cup soccer? Well, at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., there's a small team of public health experts who are watching you, collectively. It's an effort outside of government working to fill in for gaps that have opened up in public health since the Trump administration pulled the U.S. out of the World Health Organization, cut funding, and pushed out thousands of workers from the federal workforce. Caitlin Jetelina is a Texas-based epidemiologist working on the new effort called the Health Security Operations Center. She's collecting population-level data based on people's thoughts and experiences. KATLYNJTLNA. And this includes about a survey to about 2,500 people that are actually going to the World Cup game, so we can hear from them, as well as people within a 30-mile radius of the stadiums. HUANG. Amy Lockwood. Health equity researchers fear unseen level of scrutiny under White House proposal. Deep inside a White House proposal to overhaul how the government awards grants is a short section that health disparities researchers say could disqualify much of their work from federal funding, perhaps the most serious threat yet to the future of their field. Since it was issued last month, the 412-page proposal has drawn thousands of public comments, in large part because it would diminish the power of peer review in determining which grants are funded, and place that authority with political appointees. Less attention has been given to how the proposed changes could affect efforts to eliminate health disparities research. At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, which dealt a disproportionate blow to Black, Latino, and Native American populations, research on health disparities saw a groundswell of support. New funding opportunities, declarations that racism amounted to a public health crisis, and newfound interest from academic journals to publish articles on the topic. But since the start of the second Trump presidency, health disparities researchers have found themselves in the crosshairs of the administration, as part of a campaign against anything it deems related to DEI. What does hot weather do to the body? What does hot weather do to the body? Periods of hot weather can affect anyone, but some people run a greater risk of serious harm. Experts recommend that those who may be more vulnerable, such as older people and babies and young children, should take extra precautions. What does extreme heat do to our bodies? As the body gets hotter, blood vessels open up. This lowers your blood pressure and makes your heart work harder to push the blood around the body. This process can cause mild symptoms such as an itchy heat rash or swollen feet. At the same time, sweating leads to the loss of fluids and salt, and crucially, the balance between them in the body changes. This, combined with the lowered blood pressure, can lead to heat exhaustion. Symptoms include dizziness, nausea, fainting, confusion, muscle cramps, headaches, heavy sweating, tiredness. If blood pressure drops too far, the risk of heart attacks rises. Why do bodies react this way to heat? Our bodies strive to keep a core temperature of about 37 C whether we are in a snowstorm or a heat wave. That is the temperature at which our bodies have evolved to work. But as the weather gets hotter, it is harder for the body to. What are UV levels and how can you protect yourself? What are UV levels and how can you protect yourself? As a period of extreme heat is forecast across the UK this week, UV levels are expected to be high in many areas. Some exposure to UV is essential for our well-being, but too much is damaging and can cause skin cancer. What is UV and why can it be dangerous? UV radiation is emitted by the sun and penetrates the Earth's atmosphere. It enables our skin to produce essential vitamin D, which is important for the function of bones, blood cells, and our immune system. But too much UV can be harmful. It can lead to skin cancer by damaging DNA in skin cells. UV also plays a substantial role in skin aging, contributing to wrinkles and loosened folds. It has also been linked to eye problems, including cataracts. Every exposure to UV, especially every sunburn, increases our risk of skin cancer, says Prof. Dorothy Bennett from St. George's, University of London. Melanoma, the most dangerous skin cancer, is now the 5th commonest cancer in the UK. How is UV measured and what is the UV index? Levels of UV radiation vary throughout the day. The highest readings are in the 4-hour period around solar noon, when the sun is at its highest. Stat Plus, Definium LSD therapy helped patients with major depression in late-stage trial. Definium Therapeutics said Monday that its LSD therapy significantly helped patients with major depression in its first Phase 3 trial, bringing the psychedelic drug closer to a potential approval. 6 weeks after a single dose, patients on the pill, called DT120, experienced a 13.3-point drop on a depression test called the Montgomery-Åsberg Depression Rating Scale, MADRS, compared with a 5.2-point drop among patients taking placebo. By 12 weeks, the effect waned a bit but was largely maintained, as patients on the pill had an 11-point drop from their baseline, compared with a 3.6-point drop in the placebo group. This article is exclusive to Stat Plus subscribers. Unlock this article, plus daily coverage and analysis of the biotech sector, by subscribing to Stat Plus. Already have an account? Log in. Serena Williams has returned to tennis. How returning to a sport can benefit you. Serena Williams has returned to tennis. How returning to a sport can benefit you. Serena Williams has returned to tennis. How returning to a sport can benefit you. Serena Williams is back competing after years away from the tennis court. What lessons can the rest of us learn from that? Michael Martin, host. After nearly 4 years away from competition, a tennis great is back. SOUNDBITE of archived recording unidentified commentator, and Serena Williams is back with a bang. Cheering Martin, that's Williams winning a doubles match at the HSBC Championships in London earlier this month alongside Victoria Mboko. STV-INSKEP host, reporters naturally asked what it's like coming back to the courts at age 44. SOUNDBITE of archived recording, SERENA Williams, it's riding a bike up a hill. But yeah, enjoying the ride. INSKEP, I love the little subtlety there. It's like riding a bike so you don't forget, but it now feels like you're riding it uphill. Anyway, the ride continues at Wimbledon. She has a wild card entry to play doubles with her sister, Venus Williams, and another for the singles. Martin, okay, so let's say you're not a superstar athlete. Are there still the benefits of Revi? Trump administration targets disability integration mandate in DOJ memo. The Trump administration released a memo last week that seeks to upend landmark disability laws and court rulings that prioritize people with disabilities receiving care while living in their community, instead of at institutions like nursing homes. The memo, written by the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel in response to an inquiry from White House officials, breaks with decades of disability law and practice, and argues that the integration mandate is not actually a mandate, especially for people with severe mental illness or disabilities. This is potentially devastating for the rights of people with disabilities, said Jennifer Mathies, Deputy Director for the Bazelon Center for Mental Health Law and a former Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the DOJ's Civil Rights Division. The memo does not change existing laws or decisions that have laid the groundwork for the integration mandate, including Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the Supreme Court's 1999 Olmstead v. LC decision. Courts still must abide by their precedents and these three legal pillars if a lawsuit hits their dockets. However, the memo publical. Stat Plus, FDA reverses course on Regenxbio's childhood gene therapy after rejection. The Food and Drug Administration will reconsider approving an experimental gene therapy for a deadly and rare childhood brain disorder that it rejected just 4 months ago, the therapy's developer, Regenxbio, said on Monday. The sudden turnaround is the latest in a series of apparent FDA reversals in the past 2 months, after leaders installed by the Trump administration resigned or were fired. Just last week, Uniqura announced it was cleared to submit an application for a Huntington's disease gene therapy that the agency had previously spurned, and that former Commissioner Marty Makary appeared to disparage on national television. In Regenxbio's case, the company had applied for approval for a gene therapy for mucopolysaccharidosis type II, also known as MPS II or Hunter syndrome. An enzyme replacement therapy has long been available for MPS II, but the enzyme can't enter the brain, so children with the neurological form of the disease experience progressive cognitive decline. This article is exclusive to Stat Plus subscribers. Unlock this article, plus daily coverage and analysis of the biotech sector, by subscribing to Stat Plus. Already have an account? Log in. A Bride's Guide to Managing Panic. Anxiety: A Bride's Guide to Managing Panic. Don't let panic steal your wedding memories. Updated June 22, 2026, reviewed by Ekua Hagen. Key points. Panic attacks affect millions of people, making wedding day anxiety common. Exposure therapy exercises can help reduce panic before one's wedding day. Mindful breathing and grounding through the senses can calm panic symptoms during the wedding ceremony. Supporting a bride with panic attacks was the first time my clinical career intersected with my wedding coordinator experience. It was a genesis moment for something that has become a specialty. The bride had panic attacks and was particularly concerned with walking down the aisle. There was a chance that the wedding was not going to happen. This may seem very specific, but according to the ADAA, panic disorder affects about 6 million people in the United States. Anxiety disorders that may include having panic attacks impact about 40 million people each year, National Alliance on Mental Illness. This is about 19% of the population. With numbers this high, it is also likely that many people managing panic attacks are also getting married in the next year. You do not need to let. That's all for this news briefing. Thanks for listening. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.